You're very welcome to the Portrush Heritage Group Showcase event. We welcome local storyteller 𝗕𝗂𝗿𝗆, who's going to tell us a North Coast Christmas folktale, told to her by a countryman who was delivering blocks before Christmas.
This is a Christmas legend from North Antrim, and I call it the Refugees. James was planting winter wheat. It was a raw, cold day, but he was warm because he was working. And as he leant on his spade to take a rest, he looked back down the road and he saw a man leading a donkey with a woman on its back coming up the road. They were strangers to these parts. He stopped, and as they approached, he greeted them. The man answered, and James said to him, "You're not from about here." And the man shook his head. "You've come far by the looks of you," said James. And the man nodded. Then the man spoke. "Is this the road east? Will it take me to the town?" "It will," said James, "but you'll not be there before nightfall." Then he looked at the woman on the donkey's back. It was only then he realised that she was cradling in her shawl a tiny baby, no more than a couple of days old. "You'll not get to the town before dark," James said. And then, on impulse, he said, "I could offer you shelter and a bite to eat for the night." The man shook his head. No, we have to get on," he said. But the woman said, "I would like a drink." James ran to the hedge where he'd stowed his bottle of cold tea and his soda bread and brought it back, and they ate and drank hungrily. It looked as if they hadn't eaten for some time. And then the man looked back down the road, and in the distance he saw a farm cart pulled by an old horse coming into sight. He seemed to be very nervous. He was constantly checking the road. We have to go, he said. And he gathered up the reins of the donkey and headed off down the road. James couldn't get them out of his head. And that night he lay in bed and listened to the wind whistling round the cabin, and the rain and the hail battering the windows. And he hoped they'd found shelter somewhere, but he knew there wasn't much shelter between his house and the town. He woke the next morning and wandered down the lane, still with the couple and the baby in his mind. And as we know around these coasts, the weather can change quite suddenly. And a low, watery winter sun had come up. And in the light of the sun, there was a colour down the field caught his eye. And he looked and realised that the field that he had planted with corn the day before, had grown up in the night and stood ready to harvest. How could that be? He walked down to the field and pulled a stalk and bit into it, and true enough, it was ripe. What was he to do? There was only one thing he could do. He went back to get his scythe and came back down and began to harvest it. And the swing and slice of the scythe calmed him. And then he heard horses' hooves coming up the road and round the hill, and rough voices shouting. And the leader of the soldiers, he knew they were the soldiers, and he was a bit worried because the soldiers often meant trouble for poor folk like him. And the leader shouted to him, "Hey, you there! Have you seen a man, woman with a young child passing this way?" "Yes, sir," said James. "Where did they go and when did they pass?" James thought, why had he said yes? Why had he not told them no? And then he heard his voice, but he barely knew what he was saying. "They went that way, sir. They passed when I was planting the corn." The soldiers looked at the field of corn. "Fool," spat the captain. planting the corn. I should arrest you for delaying the king's men. It's a wild goose chase, he said to his soldiers. And they wheeled their horses round and went back the way they had come.
We welcome Laura Finlay, a young flautist from Portrush, and she is going to play You Bear Me Up. We welcome Alice Rodich, a member of a very old Portrush family, who's going to tell us the story of Dickie's Window, about a child looking into a Christmas toy shop window and wondering what Santa might bring.
I stood at Dickie's window, nose pressed tight against the cold glass, my warm breath clouding the window as it met the frosty evening air. I wiped the misted pane clear with my woolly sleeve. The coloured lights twinkled around me as they reflected in the trickling droplets of condensation, little rainbow rivers. I loved Dickie's window, always filled with such splendour, but at night time it was spectacular, especially to a wide-eyed child on Christmas Eve. Trains and teddies, prams and tractors, books and games, and standing centre stage, staring right at me, the most beautiful doll ever made. She wasn't hard like Cindy or stiffly jointed like Barbie. She wasn't a baby doll that cried real tears, nor a soft rag doll to cuddle at night. She was the most perfect doll, a real friend to play with and share secrets with. If there really was a Santa on this most magical of nights, if I wished hard enough, if I believed, really, really, truly believed, Santa just might have time to add her on my pile on his sleigh. Niggling whispers from the big boys in the playground rose in my over-imaginative mind, stories about poor old Santa. But tonight was no time for those thoughts. Tonight Santa needed all the faith and trust I could possibly muster. Santa was coming. Oh, how I would pray tonight at midnight mass. For a moment I was lost, carried away in the fun I would have with my new best friend. Then, suddenly and abruptly, reality crashed into my dream. A hand, and not Santa's, reached in and snatched her away from the window. I watched in disbelief as the space where she stood was filled with a gigantic red box of spirograph. My dream had vanished, shattered in an instant, stealing all the excitement of Christmas Eve with it. Maybe those mean boys from school were right. Maybe I was too old for Santa. And maybe he too, like the Tooth Fairy, didn't really exist. Warm tears spilled down my cold cheeks as the disappointment sank in. My doll was gone. In bed that night I pined for my missing friend and pondered come morning what, if anything, would replace the doll from Dickie's window with the real blinking eyes, her curly blonde hair and her long leather boots. It was still dark outside when the excited shouts from my brothers woke me. Bleary-eyed, I crept apprehensively to the living room, half expecting an empty chair. But no, my games compendium was there, my magic painting book was there, crayons, paints, my Bunty Annual and my selection box too. And I couldn't quite believe it, smiling through the cellophane box, my beautiful doll from Dickie's window. Oh, thank you, Santa. Thank you, baby Jesus. Thank you. Only you could have known what I really, really wanted. A miracle indeed had happened. The wonder and innocence of childhood were restored for another year.
We welcome 𝗂𝗔, who's going to tell us about a visit from St Nicholas.
'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and Anne my cap had just saddled our brains for a long winter's nap, when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter. I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wandering eye did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be St Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away all. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St Nicholas too. And then at a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung over his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, and his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump and a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know that I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings, and then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
We welcome the Burn duo, Molly on fiddle and Beatrice on the uilleann pipes. They're going to play Up and About, a jig. We welcome the indefatigable John McNally, who's going to give a Christmas message to all Portrush Heritage Group members.
Hello, my name is John McNally and I'm the chairman of the Portrush Heritage Group. With the cancellation of our Heritage Evening, we have sought alternative ways of maintaining contact with you, our membership, our followers, and our future members. Our COVID Emergency Committee of John Moore, Keith Brown, Mervyn Mackay and myself has been busy developing alternative and new communication channels. Since lockdown, we've been producing weekly heritage newsletters, which are sent out by email. Our members are the authors of these articles, and we would like to thank them and encourage new contributors to get in touch with their ideas. The newsletters are also published in the Chronicle, and we would like to thank the editor, John Phillis, for his support in this regard. COVID-19 has also advanced the use of social media and digital technologies, and we are grateful to the National Lottery Heritage Fund for their financial support with the recruitment of technical help and the purchase of equipment for the development of these channels. This podcast is one example of the progress we have made in this field, and our thanks go to our Vice Chairman John Moore and Mervyn Mackay for organising this session. In 2019, when we were developing our heritage trail, it was decided to rebrand our digital profile as Discover Portrush. This has been a great success with over 2,000 downloads of the Heritage Trail app, Discover Portrush. Our social media and website have also undergone a transformation, and our thanks to 𝗟𝘂𝗍, our social media mentor, for her guidance in these areas. We realize also that there are many who do not use the internet or perhaps prefer to read printed material. And in this regard, our Discover Portrush magazine will, we hope, help to inform of our activities. Issue 1 was sent out in December, and issue 2 will follow in January. We've also been working through the pandemic on a project called Young Explorer Portrush, or 𝗟P, which is led by Jade Thorne. 𝗟P is funded by the Open Gulf Legacy Fund and managed by Cosway Coast and Glensborough Council. It is an information channel that our teachers and school children will be able to use to access details about our local heritage. We plan to launch 𝗟P by Easter 2021, and we'll be telling you more about this in the future broadcasts. Our accounts for the year ending the 30th of September 2020 have been circulated. My thanks to our Treasurer, John White, for his work in managing our finances. I'd also like to thank the committee who have been working hard to keep you informed on our activities. Our AGM will be held in January 2021 by Zoom, when the reports and committee elections will be carried out. We all miss the opportunity to be able to gather in a room to chat and hear talks about our shared heritage, and we look forward to their resumption when it is safe to do so. Meanwhile, we will continue to use all available means to keep in touch with you in the hope that when we meet, it will be a continuation of a conversation we have been having through these difficult times. I am delighted that over 100 of our members have already renewed their subscription. Please encourage your family and friends to join. It's very simple to do. Just send contact details to me, chairman.portrushheritage@gmail.com, and I will include you on our mailing list. Meantime, have a great Christmas. You deserve it.
I hope you enjoyed our presentation. Look forward to seeing you again, and do look out for us on social media.